Before the seas rose, before evil even had a name, there existed a world the Bible allows us to glimpse only through a crack in the ancient veil. A world so strange, so violent in its beauty, that if humanity saw it with their own eyes today, our collective voice would tremble to speak of it. A world swallowed by judgment, buried beneath waters deeper than memory, and yet its bones still whisper. They whisper in the fissures of forgotten mountains. They echo beneath ruins of black stone cities where shattered idols lie face down in the dust. They murmur through the broken necks of colossal statues. And through the skeletal remains, 4 even 5 meters long, scattered like warnings carved into the earth itself. This was the first age, the age before the flood. Not myth, not legend, but a chapter erased by terror, sealed beneath the silence of millennia. For Genesis speaks of it. Enoch walked through it. Jubilees remembers it, and the ancients feared it so deeply, they allowed time to bury what their tongues would not, because what lived in that world was not meant to live again. Yet tonight, we reopen the door. This is where we venture into the forgotten corridors of Scripture, the hidden passages history dared not preserve. Not to challenge faith, but to look more honestly into the truths left for the final generation. This is the sanctuary of seekers, where mystery is not an enemy, but a compass. If you are ready, step with me beyond the veil. Because before there was a flood, there were beings so fearsome, even heaven trembled at their rebellion. In those distant centuries before the waters rose, humanity began to forget the sound of its own origin. They built cities of carved stone, towering ziggurats that clawed at the sky palaces veined with gold, taken from the bones of the earth. They worshipped their skill, their strength, their ambition, and slowly, they ceased to look upward. For when a people no longer lift their eyes to the heavens begin to look back. Across the firmament, unseen by mortal sight, a presence lingered. They were called the Watchers, celestial beings, appointed to observe, to guard, to guide. But the line between watching and desiring is thin, dangerously thin. As they gazed upon the daughters of mankind, women radiant as dawn, resilient as the soil that birthed them, something unfamiliar stirred within angelic hearts. Longing, curiosity, hunger. The ancient traditions say their whispers began on the wind, echoing from mountaintops and drifting across the night like forgotten hymns. And then came the moment that changed the fate of the world. 200 of them gathered at the summit of Mount Hermon, a mountain whose stones still tremble with the memory. Under a sky bruised with stormlight, they bound themselves with an oath. We descend together. We take for ourselves wives among the children of men, and none shall turn back. Their garments glowed like constellations torn from their stations. Their eyes burned as if fire had learned to see. Their voices rolled like thunder, softened into temptation. And when they stepped onto the earth, mankind dazzled, mesmerized, called them the gods who walk. But what descended was not blessing. It was the bending of creation itself. From their unions came beings of impossible scale, giants whose shadows swallowed city walls. The Nephilim, born with strength beyond comprehension, beauty sharpened into arrogance, and appetites too monstrous for a mortal world. At first, men praised them. Songs were written of their feats. Temples were raised in their honor. But admiration decayed into fear, and fear into servitude. For the Nephilim were not born to rule with wisdom. They were born to consume. Azazel, the most defiant among the Watchers, tore heavenly knowledge from its rightful place and fed it to mankind like poisoned fruit. He taught the forging of weapons, the ability to turn Earth's hidden metals into instruments of blood. He revealed the craft of enchantments, seduction, and sorcery. Others brought forbidden arts astrology that sought to manipulate the order of heaven. Charms that twisted the mind, potions drawn from corrupted herbs, and secrets of gemstones once meant only for angelic courts. What was meant to illuminate became chains. Knowledge, once a celestial gift, became the very tool that enslaved humanity. The world began to change. Forests withered beneath the boots of giants. Rivers shifted their courses as if fleeing from them. Animals grew restless, their instincts recoiling from the unnatural. Even the sky dimmed, as if ashamed to mirror what the earth had become. And then came the abominations. Creatures born of experiments never meant for mortal soil. Half beast, half man. Eyes that shimmered with madness. Voices that drove listeners into delirium. Nature herself groaned. Creation recoiled. The balance of the world trembled on the edge of collapse. In that corrupted age, only a whisper of truth remained. A faint memory of the one who shaped the heavens. A remnant of humanity who still called upon his name in secret, their prayers rising like small flames against an ocean of darkness. And it is in this fragile remnant that the next part begins, for a single voice would soon rise to confront the corruption of both heaven and earth. But before that voice is heard, we must first understand the full weight of rebellion. If this feels less like history and more like a warning that still breathes today, share what stirred within you. For when truth is spoken aloud, darkness loses its grip. In an age drowned in corruption, when giants walked the valleys and fallen angels ruled from shadowed heights, there remained one fragile thread of light, the line of Seth. These were the quiet ones, the ones who still whispered the name. They planted their fields, tended their flocks, buried their dead with hymns, and looked not to the giants, but to the heavens. And among them lived a man whose footsteps echoed differently from all others, Enoch. Scripture says he walked with God, not in metaphor, not in dream, but in a communion so real, the air around him seemed to grow thin. He lived in a world devoured by terror, yet he carried himself with the stillness of one who had glimpsed eternity. And one evening, when the sky bled gold and bronze, he vanished from mortal sight. But before that disappearance came the calling. It happened on a day like any other, yet unlike any day the world had ever known. Enoch felt the veil thin. The world around him dissolved like sand slipping through fingers, and suddenly he stood before a radiance no tongue could fully describe. He beheld a throne that pulsed like living fire, wings like lightning, voices that rolled from horizon to horizon. And from the midst of the glory came a command, "Enoch, son of Jared, speak my judgment, for the measure is full. Time has reached its end." The message seared itself upon his spirit. He was shown the sins of the watchers, the violence of the Nephilim, the cries of the oppressed rising like smoke. He was shown the trembling of creation, waiting for justice. When Enoch returned, he spoke what he had seen. He walked through marketplaces, through the shadow of giant fortresses, through villages trembling under the weight of their oppressors, proclaiming, "The Most High has seen all deeds. The watchers will fall, the giants will perish, and the earth will be cleansed." But the people laughed. Some called him mad. Others mocked him openly. Even those who believed trembled. For what hope did a single prophet have against beings who shattered mountains with their bare hands? Yet Enoch continued, his voice steady as a river carved through stone. And then, without warning, he was gone. Not slain, not buried, not mourned. He simply ceased to be on earth. For the Most High had taken him. If a righteous man could vanish into the heavens, what fate awaited the wicked? And then the sky changed. Michael, the warrior of God, unsheathed his blazing authority. Raphael prepared the healing of a world poisoned by celestial rebellion. Gabriel lifted the trumpet of divine decree. and Uriel, keeper of secrets and light, descended with the written sentence. He delivered it to the place Enoch once stood, a silent testimony that the time of reckoning had arrived. Meanwhile, a different corruption spread beneath the surface. Women who had willingly offered themselves to the watchers, seduced by their beauty, intoxicated by their glory, found their own forms warping. What was once admired became cursed. Their voices turned haunting, their beauty twisted into illusions that lured wanderers to ruin. The ancients called them sirens, studying on spirits of half sorrow, half deceit. But judgment was not yet finished. Michael descended not with a sword, but with a strategy. He whispered distrust into the camps of the Nephilim, and giants who once fought side by side turned upon each other. Their roars shook the plains. Their blood, thick, dark, unnatural, ran down riverbeds like spilled night. They tore down their own citadels. They crushed their own champions. And the earth groaned beneath the weight of their downfall. Those who called themselves gods, the narrator whispers, died like beasts. When the dust settled, only the watchers remained silent, stripped of arrogance, staring into the void they had forged. Their punishment was swift. Chains not forged by earthly metal, but by divine decree bound them. They were cast into a depth darker than death, a prison where no sound reached and no light dared enter. Above, the world grew still. A heavy silence spread across the lands, the kind of silence that comes not from peace, but from the breath before a storm. Creation waited. The sky tightened. The fountains of the deep stirred. For judgment had only begun. If you've ever wondered why God allows evil to rise, before he strikes it down, share your thoughts. This is not debate. This is the fellowship of those who seek truth. And now, let us follow the only man who still heard God's voice in the gathering storm. The man chosen to build a vessel of salvation before the sky finally wept. In a world teetering on the edge of annihilation, when violence filled every valley and corruption stained every breath, one man still listened for the whisper of the divine. Noah, descendant of Seth, worker of the soil, keeper of quiet obedience, walked upright when the earth forgot how to stand. While others carved idols, he carved altars. While the powerful glorified their strength, he glorified the one who gives it. And when the Most High looked upon the earth and saw that every imagination of man's heart was only evil continually, Noah found grace. Then came the command that would divide history in two. Make for yourself an ark, a vessel of salvation, in a land that had never known rain, a sanctuary of wood, in the middle of a barren plain, a message of judgment, delivered through the hands of a single man. He lifted his hammer. He struck the first nail, and with every echoing blow, prophecy took shape in cedar and pitch. But the world laughed. They pointed and mocked. They called him a fool, a zealot, a dreamer lost in old tales. And yet, Noah continued, for faith is often loudest when the world is deaf. They called him insane, until the sky began to bleed. Signs unfolded across creation. Animals by instinct older than mankind began to converge, pairs and sevens, marching toward the ark as though led by an invisible hand. The moon rose red like a wound. The winds reversed their course, but humanity danced harder, shouted louder, worshipped the giants they once feared. The hour of mercy closed. Then came a moment described with chilling simplicity in Genesis, and the Lord shut him in. The door of the ark, heavy, immovable, sealed not by Noah's strength, but by divine decree. And when God closes a door, no man, no angel, no giant can force it open. Outside, the first drops fell, soft, gentle, almost tender. But then the heavens tore. Waters struck the earth like falling mountains. Thunder cracked across the sky's blackened belly. The fountains of the deep exploded upward, ancient waters rising in rebellion against the corruption they had endured. Idols toppled, temples dissolved. Cities vanished beneath waves that roared like the voice of judgment itself. Noah's Ark rose as the world sank. Outside, screams swallowed by water, humanity clawing at wood that would never open to them. The Nephilim, those who believed themselves unkillable, dragged beneath the weight of their own arrogance. Inside the groaning of wood, the shudder of beasts, the trembling prayers of 8 souls sheltered by grace. The ark, battered, lifted, spun, remained unbroken, not by its craft, but by the God who remembered his covenant with Noah. And when the waters prevailed for 150 days, the world that once was the world of watchers, giants, and abominations was buried beneath a silence so complete it felt like the universe holding its breath. The old world died that day, not by accident, not by myth, by decree. When the waters finally began to withdraw, the ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat, a cradle laid upon the ribs of the earth. Noah waited. Then he released a raven, then a dove. And when the dove returned with a single olive leaf, the world tasted hope again. Noah stepped onto cleansed soil. He built an altar, the first altar of the new humanity. And the Most High, smelling the offering, declared a promise older than nations: never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood. He set his bow in the clouds, not as a weapon, but as a sign, a covenant, a reminder that judgment and mercy walk hand in hand, and that rebirth always follows ruin. And from that moment, the story of humanity began again. But the flood was not the end, only the beginning. For what rose from those waters would shape every prophecy yet to come. The world that once was has been washed away, yet its echo lingers in every corner of our history. We have walked through an age of giants' rebellion, judgment, and renewal. A story not only of destruction, but of a God who rebuilds what human hands have broken. And though the ark has long since rested on Ararat stones, its message still rises like mist above the waters. Because the flood was an ending and a beginning, and its warning does not belong to the past alone. As you sit with this journey, let the questions continue to speak within you. If something in this story stirred your heart or awakened a forgotten curiosity, share it. Like, share, subscribe, and stay with us, because there are more mysteries waiting, more ancient doors yet to open, and more truths the world has tried to forget. For before the waters rise, there is always a call for those willing to listen.